Oh, yeah. Good evening. It is August 20th, 2025, and this is the Finance Committee. Can I go ahead and get a roll call, please?
Mr. Capel?
Here.
Mr. Ayer?
Yes, here.
Mr. Ghost? Mr. Grumney?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mrs. Cooper is absent and Mayor St. John will be here shortly.
Yes, he'll be here shortly. Thank you very much. And then we have minutes from July 16th. People had a chance to take a look at that. Could I get a motion to approve?
So move.
And I'll go ahead and second. Thank you, Molly. Discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says John Grumley called the meeting to order,
Mhm.
and then the next sentence says John Grumley was absent. So,
David Martin.
Yeah, I was here, I think. Or
No, you
was I?
weren't here.
No, I
You were
wasn't.
actually absent.
You're
The
right.
mayor called it. So
That's right.
we have that correction on there
Okay,
already.
awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Good eye, sir. All right, anything else? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Ayer?
Yes.
Mr. Grumney?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
abstain.
Mr. Ghost?
Yes.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
4 yeas, minutes passed.
Okay, so I think that moves us to new and unfinished business, and I think we have some what-if scenarios with a potential 10% reduction if we were to have certain legislation passed. So, Ms. Steffen?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to skip around a little bit if that's okay. I'd like to hold that 10% reduction scenario until the mayor comes. I know he has some interest in that.
Sure.
So I'll skip to the quarterly investment review.
Sounds good.
And this starts on page 7 of your packets, page 7 and 8. This is our quarterly investment review. As of June 30th, city's total cash and investment balance is just under 22 million, about 21.8 million. And 46% of that is in overnight liquidity accounts, meaning Star Ohio and First Commonwealth accounts where we can take money out same day. Star Ohio has about 7.2 million and it's getting a 4.45 annual percentage yield right now, variable rates. And Fifth Third Securities has 11.8 million with about a 4.31 average yield. We still have a high rate environment, and on the next page, I'll talk a little bit about the economics and what the Fed has decided to do or not do in this case. But until we get there, we'll continue on this page. For the Fifth Third Securities assets, we have about 11,889,213 in units. And as I mentioned, the book yield is 4.3%, and the average life is approximately 2.68 years. That just means that on average, we can't take the money out of those investments until they are reaching maturity. And as you all know, the maximum maturity on any of these investments is only 5 years. So that's the maximum we can do according to ORC 135. On the next page, we have a breakdown of where our securities and cash are being held. And this isn't much different from what you've seen in the past. The majority of it's in agency bonds, and some in CDs and a little bit in mutual funds. On to the economic update. Just wanted to give a little brief highlight here. At the beginning of the year, we expected the Fed to start reducing rates throughout the year, and they haven't really done that yet. There's a lot of factors in play that they're considering, and you can read a little bit about that in those bullet points there. But I just wanted to bring that up because I mentioned that we may start moving money from Star Ohio into Fifth Third Investments, but Star Ohio is still doing very, very well for us. And since the Fed is not lowering those rates, I think to keep a decent amount of money in that is a smart investment decision. So I'm happy with where we stand right now, given the environment.
So staying steady with Star Ohio unless we start seeing a shift in rates and then move to Fifth Third.
Yes,
Okay.
that's my plan.
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty brief update. Any questions?
What's the guarantee if the rates do go down that Fifth Third will be the optimal place to move to, or would Star Ohio potentially still be the?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have a lot of insight into that right now that I can provide, but I can discuss with our Fifth Third analyst.
Asking you to tell the future there.
He has a little bit more knowledge of the ins and outs of when to start looking at those rates and based on what the Fed is beginning to do, when to start moving money. There's other banks that we could use as well instead of Fifth Third, but Fifth Third's been doing very well for us.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So that is the investment review. Would you like me to move on to quarterly?
Yeah, let's go. Let's,
I'm sorry, the
year-to-date comparison, sure.
yes. Okay, starting on page 9 of your packet, we have the revenue variances. And a few call outs I'd like to point out here on page 9, starting with the income tax towards the top of the page there. We've collected about a little over 4 million of our $6 million budget. So we are on track to exceed budget at this point. And I have a more detailed breakdown on the front page, which I can talk about in a little bit later. Just below that, we have local government funds, and we're on track to exceed the budget by about $16,000 here, which is great news. Further down in Mayor's Court, about halfway down the page, we've collected about 90%. And that balance those collections are completely dependent on the activity in Mayor's Court. So it's difficult to determine how much revenue we're going to pull in. It has been on the up and up. So we've seen a lot of increase in revenues in this account lately. So I would potentially increase that budget for 2026.
And this stuff, and I think this goes to highlight too, how a lot of this is so much about timing. Because if we were looked a couple months ago, we might have seen this a little bit in red, and then we're just waiting for things to catch up. And now, yeah, so I'm just pointing that out because I know sometimes with this time I go, wow, why are we selling? And you're saying, well, still waiting on X to come in. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Building permits, slightly in the middle of the page there. We are about 70% collected. We had 87 new home permits issued year to date, and that brought in about $34,800. We also had permits and other zoning certificates purchased by larger developers, and those are listed there. We did receive zoning fees or engineering fees for the Northport Residential Hotel, Hitachi Astemo, Ohashi, the Metro Development site has also paid in as well. So those are all going into that line. Just below that, we have stormwater fee revenue. And as you may recall, this is a new account this year, a new fund, a new account in the general fund. And we have collected fees from Kiwis Clubhouse, Northport Place, and Sunbury Holdings so far. Just below that, on the interest income, we have exceeded our budget and look to continue to grow that through the rest of the year. So that's great. And that brings me to page 10.
Couple questions, Dana.
Yes.
Local government funds at the top there. What's an example of a few of those?
Local government funds consists of the local government fund is actually the name of it from the state. They carry some funds there and they disperse that to the county, and then in turn the county disperses it to the city. So these are funds that are set aside as part of the state budget, and they're given to all local governments, just in a pro rata portion to the size and the need.
Right, and then state grants down there at the bottom.
State grants. So in that,
Yeah.
we've budgeted for the FEMA grant for Walnut Street stabilization, which we have received. That's what that $269,000 in receipts is for. We budgeted $1.32 million. I know 500 of it was for Walnut Street. 300 of that was for OPWC, which we did not receive. And the remaining portion of that is escaping my mind at the moment.
You think we're still on track to get at least $1 million of that rest
I
estimation?
don't think that's the case because the 300,000 from the OPWC, which we are not going to get, we didn't know that until after the budget was passed. What's the other piece in there?
Or DNR, J.R. Smith Park.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, that so that's a grant that we are going to receive once we start spending money on that project and we get actual supplies and goods that we can actually physically touch. We'll start submitting those for reimbursement and receive that funding. So that may not come in until 2026.
Thank you.
Yes. Would you like me to finish up the revenues before we move on, before we go back to?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
On page 10, miscellaneous reimbursements. We have exceeded that budget. We've collected about 201%. So that is mainly because we've got the Big Walnut Trail reimbursement, Pulte Snow reimbursement, and various other items there. You can see they're all listed out. It's just difficult to estimate how much we're going to receive in miscellaneous reimbursements. So I may consider increasing that for next year since we are exceeding it quite consistently. Same thing with other governmental revenue on the same page. We are almost exceeding the budget there because we've received an unexpected $21,000 grant for law enforcement and the Martindale property reimbursement for $25,000. And that was from money that was spent back in 2021, 2022. And then at the bottom of page 10, getting out of the general fund into impact fees. As you can see, the impact fees for police, we've exceeded our budget there in collections due to 87 new homes paying impact fees and also large businesses. Northport Place is a significant contributor there. Moving on to page 11, impact fees as well for the municipal building and for roads. You can see they are both exceeded revenue. And again, due to those larger developers paying into those impact fees and also 87 new homes. And finally, on page 13 for the revenues, just one other thing to call out. In the pass-through income, we've received almost double of what we've budgeted, and largely due to Eagle Creek and Price Ponds. And these are all pass-through accounts. So this is money that the developers are paying. We're holding it, and then we're going to pay the engineers based on the engineering projects that they're working on.
Overall, do you have a grand total of like estimated versus received?
Well, I have them by fund. If you look at the very bottom, I have them by fund, but not for all funds combined. I don't think I do.
What page would that be on? Just looking for that.
Or let me see, for the general fund, that would be on page 10. In the middle of the page, on page 10, you can see it's highlighted in blue, Fund 101 General Fund.
Okay.
We've estimated to collect 8.9 million, and year-to-date collections so far equal 5.5 million.
I see. All the blue highlights are the category.
Correct. That's for each
Comparison.
fund.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Looks good on revenues.
Mhm.
Now, I'll leave it up to you if you want to drop it. Well, you want to go to,
I could go through expenses or I could go back.
I'm gonna just wrap this up and then
Okay.
we'll go back. We don't lose our momentum here.
Perfect. All right, then. We're going to turn to page 14 of your packet. And this is the start of my expense variances report for our January through July. Looking at the yellow highlighted areas, towing expenses is such a small item. We don't really need to talk about that. Cruiser repair, though, however, we have spent about 89% of the budget. So that is something we're going to be looking at to make sure. This is all in police, by the way, police cruiser repair. So that's something to keep an eye on. Street lighting, I've mentioned this in the past. We had that Loeb Electric bill that came in from the prior year that was paid. That's what's driving that. Traffic signals, energy costs are driving that. That's why that's so high. Toward the bottom of page 14, we have the travel and contractual services. And this is the big one that we always have a lot of spending in and a lot to discuss. We've spent 1.1 million out of the 1.6 that's been budgeted. And if you may recall, that 1.6 was increased from around 700, I think, at the beginning of the year. So we've paid Verdantis, lots of engineering fees. They're all listed out there on the side. This also includes money paid to Montrose Group, for legal, the bridge sign for ODOT, that was a significant piece of it. And you can see all the other items in my small little tiny box, which I'll try to make bigger so that we can all see it a little easier next time. Okay, moving on to page 15. We're a little bit high on spending on the supplies, but I don't think it's anything that's going to get out of control. So I'll just keep an eye on that. Down in the mayor's court department, still on page 15, we're reaching high percentage spending on the mayor's court services. So I'll keep an eye on that. At the bottom of that page, auditors and treasurers fees, those are all determined by the county. We don't have a lot of say in that or control over that. So it is what it is. I'll keep an eye on it.
Question there on the mayor's court. I see we have interpreters fees. It's not very much. I'm just curious, do we always have an interpreter there for every meeting on hand, or is it just case by case?
Case by case. As needed.
Thank you. I'm on page 16 right now, and this is still general fund in the street department. We are high on spending on the contractual services there. We're about 65% spent. And I'll keep an eye on that. Nothing completely out of the ordinary there, but just general typical expenses. And that brings us to the end of the general fund there. Mr. Gose, I will point out the total in the general fund there is listed on the middle of page 16. So we've budgeted 9.5 million and we've spent 7.1 million. See that? So I like to put that in red to show that it's above where we would like to be at this point of the year. So it's just a little note to keep an eye on.
So question, do you think any of that is timing also, or is that just things that have happened throughout the year that were tough to anticipate?
Good question. Probably a little bit of both. I don't know if timing is a major issue on a lot of these expenses, but I'd have to look into them.
I would note that if you look at the transfers to other funds, I mean, that is almost double what was originally budgeted. So, I mean, that's not I guess, I don't know, it's not a direct expenditure. It's a transfer that needs to be reflected in the line. So it does go obviously to another fund for a purpose, not to say that it wouldn't be spent. So for example, the 1.25 to the capital project, that's the grant, right, from the state, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
So it shouldn't be in the general fund, gets transferred over a capital line item. So again, that's an accounting transaction, not necessarily again,
And
direct
this is just
expenditure.
a general question. Do we ever do any type of look at the end of the year to see how much was in total unexpected costs? So, and then go, okay, was that unexpected cost that occur last year too in the period? So now it's not so much unexpected. It's now maybe it should become a line item. And then, is there any way to adjust the budget based on those experiences or not?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
In fact, at the end of last year, you may recall, I did do a comparison report that showed what we had originally budgeted and then what we had actually spent. Throughout the year, I update these amounts from what was budgeted with what we've added to the budget. So you're always seeing on here the adjustment. So you're always seeing the current budget as it's being adjusted throughout the year. But to look at what we've originally planned versus what we actually did spend is a great exercise, I think, because it will call out any of those items that we didn't anticipate, we didn't expect, and we can look at improving our budgeting in the future.
Yeah, and not so much like if I'm going real simple here, $5 or something ended up costing $7. Okay, that's cost overrun, maybe some, but more like we weren't expecting that $5 cost at all.
Yes.
And so that, yeah, okay, awesome.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I will continue to do that for this year so that we can have a good visibility of that.
Thank you.
All right, so we got through the general fund on expenses. Not much else to talk about, but I'll continue through here for the yellow highlighted items. Again, on page 16. Street fund is next after general fund, and we have spent decent amount, almost all of it on the contractual services, but this is Safe Streets for All, and we did increase that budget there. And we have also been receiving the grant reimbursements throughout the year on that Safe Streets for All project. And the debt service principal, that's just been fully paid for the year. That's why it's in yellow. That's a timing thing. Page 17, in the cemetery fund, we are high on spending in the contractual services for cemetery. I don't think this is anything out of the ordinary, but I will keep an eye on that just to make sure we're not exceeding. And the notes cemetery, we had paid those off early, and that's why we have a higher expense there. So we will not have any expenses in the future for that. Down in the sewer fund, which is at the bottom of page 17 and on page 18. Just a few items. The large one down there at the bottom is the contractual services for the sewer plant, mainly engineering on Little Walnut Creek, engineering on construction for the wastewater treatment plant, and various fees related to other sewer plant costs. I'll keep an eye on those. Page 18, the only thing to discuss there are the principal and interest on the bonds. Those have been fully paid for the year, so there's no more spending there, and that's why they're yellow, because of timing. And that brings us to the end of the report.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Any questions on expenses?
Got a quick question. So the city does buy the fireworks.
Not all of
At
them.
least contributed to some.
Okay, we do contribute.
Yeah, we're a contributor, but the Big Walnut Civic Association, they do raise funds as well to support the event.
Is 10,000, do you know what the bill is for the fireworks?
Like
No.
15 or 18,000.
Right.
Like that.
And the 8,000 to Civic Plus.
Civic Plus is a service provider. They provide streaming services and the website for.
So, okay.
Okay. We want to just finish up this tail end and we'll just get, and then we can go right back to the 10% reduction discussion. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see, page 19, we have the year-to-date fund report. I didn't have anything to point out here, but you can see where all of our fund balances were at the beginning of the year and where they're sitting now. Happy to answer any questions on those. And then page 20 through the end of your packet will be the complete check report for the month of July. So we've spent $2.4 million in not only checks, but also ACHs as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there's any large items on there or questionable things that you would like me to give more details on. I'm happy to do so.
Any questions?
So maybe just call out Simonson Construction. That is the firm doing the wastewater treatment plant improvements. So that is the big item and will continue to be a big item throughout the construction project.
Yes, that's on page 20 for those at 1.1 million.
Questions? All right, thanks.
Do we have a line item that shows our interest income on any savings accounts or CDs?
The only savings accounts and CDs that we have would be in the Fifth Third investments.
Okay.
And that the interest there is included in the general fund interest. That would be on,
Does that include all interest that we have on our assets, like in our money market as well?
yes,
Okay. What page is that?
be on page 9. Yes, page 9, toward the bottom, it says interest income. We budgeted 400,000 and we've collected 432,000 so far.
Excellent. Excellent work. Money doing the work that we don't want to do for us.
I love it when money does that.
Yeah, and it's doing it at a faster rate than we planned.
Yeah.
Good
Good
work.
thing.
So is that accurate? We're gonna see around $850,000 worth of interest income this year.
if things hold steady,
That just leads into the next item on the agenda, I think. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for the transparency, and I think we're ready to move on to the hot topic. Yeah.
10%,
Yeah.
okay. On page 5 and 6, well, basically just page 5 of your packet, I had been asked to put together some scenarios on what the city could do if we did experience a 10% reduction in our general fund revenues. Roughly, that would equate to about $800,000, and it's all general fund money. So I went through and looked at what some possible scenarios could be. In the blue section, it's all related to staffing. The green section is projects that we've done, and then orange is some higher annual expenses that we could potentially do without. So in the staffing, all of the police benefits for 2024 totaled $804,000. The entire streets department operating costs, which includes wages, benefits, and everything else, equaled $764,000 in 2024. 6 patrol officers' wages and benefits totals about $757,000. All admin staff, including the PD admin, wages and pension only, is about $1 million, just under $1 million. Medical, dental, vision, life insurance, HSA funding is about 1.5. And I just wanted to throw this out here so that if we ever wanted to decide maybe reducing that a bit, that's a potential area where that could save some money.
So just to be clear, these are what the current costs are for 20. They're not, because I'm reading the sentence says this is the city could forego, but we wouldn't forego. I mean, we can't forego wages.
None of this is a recommendation. This is all just scenarios to show what type of expenses we could, what type of things we could change or do without. I'm not saying that we would want to do any of these, but just wanted to put some things out there for visibility. And
Especially not on the whole. Like,
Right.
You're giving us big bucket categories that we can, in our minds, think of where you can trim.
exactly.
Thanks.
In the green section for projects, just to give you an idea of what was spent on the streets program in 2024, $852,000. We budget $1 million every year for the streets program. So that would, if we lost that $800,000, that could potentially take that away. The Sedgwick Avenue Park and Reservoir improvements, that cost us a total of $617,000. We did get a little bit of a Nature Works grant for that, about $40,000. The engineering cost for East Side Utilities is about $470,000. J.R. Smith Park improvements, as you can see, that's a $3 million plus project. Again, just something to think about. Admin building lower level improvements, we've budgeted $300,000 for those. And the Columbus Street parking lot, the bids came in at $767,000. And then in the annual expenses, again, just some minor things to show. Parks Department, cemetery is important. We don't necessarily, I don't want to say too much here, but I think you can all see what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah. So it looks like the total overall of the list is around 12 million or so.
Yeah, it's not meant to be a cumulative list, though.
I was just thinking overall, the 800,000 is about 6 to 7% of the total.
11% of the total of like annual, right? It's about 11% of our annual revenue.
General fund, yes. General fund revenue, yes.
So theoretically, I mean, you could consider an 11% across the board cut, something like that, I suppose, right? That's assuming, I mean, how do you arrive at the 800,000? Does that mean revenues are static and not going to grow next year?
So the 800,000 is around the amount that we received from the real estate settlement. And that was the topic, that was the driver that was going to be taken back. So that's why I took that. And I think that's why we came up with 10%. Is that right, Mayor?
Yeah. Yeah, I can jump in here. First of all, thank you for pulling this together. Real estate taxes in general across our state are under attack. And I would say the ones in particular that are under attack are inside millage, which is part of the Ohio Constitution. It enables municipalities, counties, schools to, townships to have inside millage. It's kind of like, I'll call it like a starting fund of baseline taxes for those entities. The reason those are under attack right now, and I think rightfully so, is because they are, they're not tied to any direct debt. They are not tied to any direct expense unless a municipality, county, or township says these revenues are going to be used for this purpose. In our case, we don't do that. In Delaware City, they do. They use portions of it to pay off certain portions of like police and fire benefits. But the biggest reason that they're under attack is they're affected by inflation. And so when property values increase every 3 years, typically, the rate of increase is proportional to the rate of increase in the inside millage. And that's why across the state, you're seeing this big push to eliminate real estate taxes overall, but also back to House Bill 335, the one that I'd put out the statement with Galena and the school district about, is that my primary opposition is not to the real estate side. It's the real estate tax side. It is the way that they were going to go about it. And it was like, the state's going to get credit more or less for doing what we're doing right now. And that's thinking about this thoughtfully. And how are we going to potentially either replace the revenue or make hard decisions on what we can actually cut. So and let me just give you a couple examples of what's happening in our county. So number one, Delaware County just this week voted, and the commissioners voted to roll back inside millage for the county even further. So they rolled back about 35% of the inside millage. I would recommend that, given all of the outside pressures that we have going on, that there is probably going to be a ballot initiative in the next year to try to eliminate all real estate taxes. I would recommend that we go on the offensive on this issue and not try to go, let's cut 10% of our budget next year. But I think it would be a very responsible thing if we maybe took that 800,000 or whatever the millage would be and slice it into 3 pieces and say, next year, I say we reduce it by 33%, the following year, 33%, the following year, 33%. And then after 3 years, you're 100% off of inside millage. And Sunbury could, if you follow in this recommendation, could say Sunbury 100% is not reliant on any real estate taxes. Unless there were like some ballot initiative that you were going to pay off debt or do a special purchase levy or special purpose levy or bond or something like that. But it wouldn't be, hey, you know what, just because the Constitution affords us that opportunity to tax people, we're going to take advantage of it. Virtually everybody does, but I think it's probably the right move to get ahead of this. And I think we could really be on like the leading edge, along with Delaware County and probably some other municipalities, school districts, and townships that hopefully will take the same type of approach.
I just have a quick question on that before. Does that equate then to basically permanent cuts unless we find other ways to bring in that replacement revenue, correct? So if we go that 33% down over the next 3 years, you're right, we're independent of that. So whatever's decided, we're free of that. And we're not getting caught, with a one lump sum cut. But how do we reduce the net effect of that on what we do? Like for me, this is just one person's opinion. I would not be interested in like cutting anything in the staffing column in the blue.
Yeah.
I would be more inclined on projects and annual expenses than I would on any staffing. But how do we replace that? What paths does the city have to go and collect that 33% each year, or cumulative 100% at the end of 3 years to maintain the level where the city's at today?
Yeah, I think we, as my recommendation, I think we take a private sector approach to this. Typically, when cuts like this happen in the private sector, they start at the top And then they go down to the departments, and typically they end up with things like what you just mentioned. Things that get cut first are like capital projects, capital investments. And maybe not holistically, but the level of investment or the speed at which you invest. And Carla is probably the one that's most impacted by this. But I had a conversation with Commissioner Jeff Benton today about this issue, and I asked that exact question, and he said, you know what, what it's going to mean is we're probably just going to invest a little bit less. I mean, they were dealing with a $300 million budget, and they're foregoing, I think, about $8 million a year or something like that, with their 33% reduction in inside millage. Ours is a little bit different, but the runway on $300,000 when our budget is what, 15 million a year or something. I mean, guys, we can figure this out. We can figure out $300,000. Like the shock and awe of this, and that's what this is intended to do, right? Like we have to say, like, what cost categories are big buckets where you could like frame it in your mind what $800,000 is worth. But I would also ask you to take into account a couple of things I already mentioned. One, the interest income. Like our money right now is making more money than all inside millage combined.
Right.
Or very close.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
It was just to mention, we're focusing on the expense side, but you're right, there's also the revenue side of the equation.
And then on the revenue side, I mean, our revenues are outpacing. I can imagine anybody in the county right now in terms of an increase, and that's very promising, but I think it has to do with a couple things. Number one, obviously we're growing fast, but like the turbocharger on our growth, especially related to revenue, is our impact fees. I mean, something we put into effect a couple of years ago.
And increased them after a major study, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just roll that out for all the development that's kind of in the hopper or in the queue. That you can always adjust impact fees. Obviously, it's demand based. It has to be based on the demand of the community, the demand of the capital infrastructure, but I'm confident that we as a team can figure out a $300,000 reduction cumulatively until inside millage is completely eliminated.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think you would tell everybody a very, very, very good story, especially individually, wherever you end up in your next journey, or if you retire happy, I cut taxes for the people. Like, would that feel good to say?
Of course.
Yeah. Dana, is this making you nervous, or do you feel like we need more discussion?
No, this is not making me nervous at all. I think that's a very intelligent approach to the problem.
Hennessy, did you weigh in?
And I was just going to say, so we will start talking about the budget next month. So you'll start to see the beginnings of what the staff budget looks like. Yeah, I mean, to the point, we'll definitely build in, or I guess to the point here is that we have been talking about the expense side. We haven't really talked about the revenue side. I think one of the things we are looking at a little bit internally is kind of the fee structure that we've got to make sure that it's aligned properly. I mean, that's in some ways that's consistent with what we did a few years ago with the impact fee. It was a little bit out of sync. We adjusted that, feel like we're in the right place. Just want to make sure that we feel we're in the right place with respect to some other fees as well. So that's true. And always believe that, given the rapid growth in the city of Sunbury, that we want to make sure that we've got a good, solid collection system on the income tax side, that everyone is contributing who should be contributing. I think we've got a pretty good working relationship with Rita. They've done a good job for us, but we need to stay on them in terms of making sure that that's consistently enforced. I mean, I would agree. I think we'll be able to show a $300,000 reduction on the property tax side. I think be in a generally pretty good position. I would agree. To me, it felt like, as I looked at this, we may end up having to slow down a project or two, a capital project or two. But we'll see. We're not there yet, quite yet. So, yeah. I mean, Carla has a long capital list.
And that's hard to explain to voters, because if you go out to, let's say, my property tax bill, I pay 2.5 mils. So a third of that reduction in next year equates to not very much money, in terms of savings, but John, your neighborhood, you pay 5 mils to the city of Sunbury. You know, a third of that is whatever, 1.75 mils or something. I mean, it starts to add up, and I think it's a really good story to tell our residents that, you know, we hear you loud and clear, like, inflation has affected property values, which in turn has affected those proportional or those pro rata, millage charges. In our case, the only one that we actually charge is inside millage. And I think if we can show that we're reducing that and we have a plan to eliminate it, as long as we have council support for the next couple of years, which I think we will. I think it's a great story to tell.
And maybe one other thing is I was thinking a little bit about it. I mean, the planning that's gone into kind of establishing the new community authorities and making sure that they're, you know, paying their way. I mean, at this point, we have kind of been footing the bill to get those things started. I think as I'd indicated at our most recent NCA meeting, we are now starting to levy charges that will begin to pay these, you know, legal costs and these design costs and other things that, again, for the most part, the city has absorbed up to this point.
It's true. Yeah, that's a great point. It's like we've already spent the money and we're actually going to start seeing money come back in for those investments, which is really.
Yep.
Cool.
What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I like this. I think it's a good model for other communities that might want to do the same thing.
yeah,
I can see.
it's forward thinking.
But yeah,
You don't want the rug pulled out from under you when the time comes either, if it comes.
I agree. Yeah, I had a lot of time to think about it, especially after the public opposition. I wanted to be really clear with this group that opposition was purely that the state doesn't know Sunbury like we know Sunbury. And for them to rip the rug out without having a plan is not effective. So I feel like we're formulating a plan and a plan that we can get behind.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Anything else to add or?
I don't have anything else to add for the 10%. So the only other thing on the finance committee agenda was the banks book reconciliation.
Yeah.
If you'd like me to go on to that, I will.
Does anyone want to go into detail on the bank and book reconciliation, or we have it here, so? All right,
Question about check number 3,172.
Good question.
I'll go through each one to make sure that, okay, then I think, is anything else from Daryl, Ms. Stefan?
I'll just point out, I didn't put it on the agenda, but budget, as Daryl mentioned, is in full swing, and you will see the draft budget of that at next finance committee meeting. And I've been meeting with the department heads and talking about staffing levels, operational needs, capital projects. So I'm looking forward to bringing a nice solid draft to the next finance committee.
No other questions? Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Ask one more question. Ms. Stefan, can you do a little bit of research on the timing of action? I assume we would need to do some sort of ordinance to actually implement what I was recommending there. There's obviously has to be coordination with the auditor, the county auditor to make that change. And I want to understand when the actual benefit would be to residents and businesses, if we can just figure out that path. Thank you.
That's assuming this goes through.
Yeah, as long as I think it's up to this group right here. That would be my recommendation. I think we have the power to do it. I know we do.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Dose, motion, we have a second? Second by Mr. Capel, discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gauss,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Fair,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney.